My dear wonderful friends, tonight I shall share with you the most powerful secret in all of creation. How to speak to yourself in a way that will completely transform your world in just 3 days. Not in 3 months, not in 3 years, but in 3 days. For you see, the power of your inner conversation is absolute, and it is the only true creative power in the universe. Now, when I tell you to talk to yourself, I am not speaking of the idle chatter that most engage in throughout their day. I speak of that inner conversation that is deliberate, conscious, and aligned with your desired state. For your inner conversation is your consciousness externalized, and your consciousness is God. Consider the words of Scripture, "In the beginning was the Word." These words are not speaking of some external deity's utterance. They speak of your inner word, your inner conversation. For you are the operant power, and your inner conversation is the word that creates all things. Many of you come to me asking, "Wayne, how long must I wait to see my desires manifest?" And I tell you now, give yourself 3 days of proper inner conversation, and you will see your world begin to transform. For 3 is the number of completion in Scripture, and when you maintain the proper inner conversation for 3 days, you set in motion forces beyond your current understanding. Let me share with you exactly how to conduct this inner conversation. First, you must understand that your inner conversation must be from the end. You do not speak of what you want to be true. You speak as though what you desire is already true. This is the great secret that most of the world has missed. When you wake in the morning of your first day, your inner conversation must be from the state of your wish fulfilled. If you desire wealth, your inner conversation must be that of a wealthy person. If you desire health, your inner conversation must be that of a healthy person. If you desire love, your inner conversation must be that of someone who is deeply loved. But then this is crucial. Your inner conversation must feel natural. It must not be strained or forced, for feeling is the secret, and your inner conversation must be accompanied by the feeling of naturalness. Let me give you a perfect example from Scripture. When David spoke to Goliath, his inner conversation was not, "I hope I can win," or "I will try my best." His inner conversation was from the state of victory already achieved. This is why he could say with complete conviction, "This day will the Lord deliver thee into mine hand." Now, for these 3 days, you must guard your inner conversation as though your life depends upon it, because it does. Every time you catch yourself engaging in inner conversation that contradicts your desired state, you must immediately revise it. This is not a suggestion, this is a command if you wish to see your world transform. Consider this: every outer conversation you have is first an inner conversation. Every relationship you have is first an inner conversation. Every circumstance in your life is first an inner conversation. Therefore, by changing your inner conversation for just 3 days, you literally change the entire substance from which your world is created. Let me tell you how to structure your inner conversation throughout these 3 days. In the morning, your first inner words must be from the state of your wish fulfilled before you open your eyes, before you move a muscle. Engage in the inner conversation of the person you wish to be. If you desire wealth, your inner conversation might be, "I am so grateful for my abundant life. Money flows to me easily and continuously. I am surrounded by prosperity." But remember, these words must not be mere affirmations. They must be spoken with the feeling of knowing that they are already true. Throughout your day, your inner conversation must maintain the same level of conviction. When challenges arise, and they will arise, your inner conversation must remain steadfast. If someone speaks of lack, your inner conversation must be of abundance. If someone speaks of illness, your inner conversation must be of health. This is where most fail in their attempt to change their world. They allow their inner conversation to be pulled into the current circumstances rather than maintaining the conversation of their desired state. But I tell you now, circumstances have no power over your inner conversation unless you give them that power. For these 3 days, you must be relentless in maintaining your new inner conversation. When you walk down the street, your inner conversation must be from your desired state. When you eat your meals, your inner conversation must be from your desired state. When you prepare for sleep, your inner conversation must be from your desired state. Let me share with you a principle that I have tested and proven countless times. Your inner conversation is the only reality. Everything else, absolutely everything, is a shadow of your inner conversation pushed out. Therefore, when you maintain the proper inner conversation for 3 days, you literally create a new world. Many of you may be thinking, but Wayne, 3 days seems too short a time to change my entire world. Let me remind you of the story of Jonah. How long was he in the belly of the whale? 3 days. And after 3 days he was transformed and his world was transformed. This is not coincidence, my dear friends. This is law. 3 days of proper inner conversation is all that is required to set in motion the forces that will transform your world. But these must be 3 complete days, not 3 days of wavering between states. During these 3 days, you must guard your inner conversation, not just in your waking hours, but as you fall asleep. For the last inner conversation you have before sleep is particularly powerful. It continues to echo through your subconscious mind throughout your sleep. Therefore, as you prepare for sleep during these 3 days, your inner conversation must be perfectly aligned with your desired state. If you desire a successful business, your inner conversation might be, I am so grateful for my thriving business. My customers are delighted with our services. Profits increase continuously. But remember, and this is crucial, your inner conversation must be accompanied by the feeling of naturalness. It must feel as natural to have this conversation as it feels to speak of what you had for breakfast. This is where the power lies, not in the words themselves, but in the feeling of naturalness that accompanies them. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates your outer conversations. Therefore, during these 3 days, you must be particularly vigilant about your outer conversations as well. They must align with your new inner conversation. If someone asks you how you are, your response must come from your desired state. If someone speaks to you about problems or difficulties, your response must come from your desired state. Your outer conversation must be a perfect reflection of your new inner conversation. Many of you may find this challenging at first. You may be tempted to engage in conversations about current circumstances rather than your desired state. But I tell you now, this is where your power lies, in maintaining your new conversation regardless of appearances. Consider the story of Jesus walking on water. What was his inner conversation? Was it about the impossibility of walking on water? Was it about the danger of the storms? No. His inner conversation was from the state of mastery over all natural laws, and his outer world had to conform to this inner conversation. During these 3 days, you must maintain the same level of conviction in your inner conversation. You must speak to yourself as though your desired state is already your reality. Not as though it will be, not as though it might be, but as though it is. Let me share with you how to handle doubts when they arise during these 3 days, and they will arise. When a doubt appears in your mind, do not fight it. Instead, immediately revise your inner conversation. If you catch yourself saying inwardly, this isn't working, immediately revise it too. Everything is working perfectly. My world is transforming now. This revision must be immediate and complete. You cannot allow doubt to linger in your inner conversation. For remember, your inner conversation is the only reality. Therefore, a doubting inner conversation will create a doubting outer reality. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be dominated by gratitude. Not gratitude for what you hope will come, but gratitude for what is already yours in your desired state. This gratitude must be part of your inner conversation throughout the day. When you wake in the morning, your inner conversation must be filled with gratitude. When you go about your daily activities, your inner conversation must be filled with gratitude. When you prepare for sleep, your inner conversation must be filled with gratitude. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates your inner states, and your inner states create your outer world. Therefore, during these 3 days, your inner conversation must create and maintain the inner state of your wish fulfilled. If you desire wealth, your inner conversation must create and maintain the inner state of wealth consciousness. If you desire health, your inner conversation must create and maintain the inner state of health consciousness. If you desire love, your inner conversation must create and maintain the inner state of being loved. Many of you may be wondering what to do if you slip in your inner conversation during these 3 days. Let me be very clear, you must not condemn yourself. Instead, immediately revise the conversation. Remember, you are training yourself to maintain a new inner conversation, and like any training, it requires practice. During these 3 days, your inner conversation must be your primary focus. Every other activity must be secondary to maintaining your new inner conversation. For you are literally recreating your world through this conversation. Let me share with you how to structure your inner conversation for specific desires. If you desire a new home, your inner conversation might be, "I love living in my beautiful new home. Everything about it is perfect for me." If you desire a promotion, your inner conversation might be, "I am so grateful for my new position. It's everything I desired and more." But remember, these are not mere words. They must be accompanied by the feeling of living in that new home, the feeling of working in that new position. Fulfilling is the secret, and your inner conversation must generate the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be specific. Vague inner conversation creates vague results. Therefore, speak to yourself with clarity about your desired state. Be specific in your inner conversation about what you are grateful for, what you are experiencing, what you are enjoying in your desired state. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates your self-concept, and your self-concept creates your world. Therefore, during these 3 days, your inner conversation must be about who you are, not just what you have. If you desire success, your inner conversation must be about being a successful person, not just about having success. If you desire abundance, your inner conversation must be about being an abundant person, not just about having money. If you desire love, your inner conversation must be about being a loved person, not just about having a relationship. During these 3 days, your inner conversation must be continuous, not in the sense of constant chatter, but in the sense of consistent alignment with your desired state. Every time you become aware of your inner conversation, it must be from your desired state. Let me share with you how to maintain this continuity. Set reminders for yourself throughout the day. Every time you look at your watch, every time you eat a meal, every time you enter a room, let these be triggers to check your inner conversation. But remember, your inner conversation must not be mechanical. It must be aligned with feeling rich with the emotion of your desired state. For it is the feeling that gives power to your inner conversation. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be sovereign. You must not allow anyone or anything to dictate your inner conversation. Not circumstances, not other people's opinions, not past experiences. Nothing must have power over your inner conversation except you. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates your expectations, and your expectations create your experience. Therefore, during these 3 days, your inner conversation must create the highest expectations of good for yourself. Many of you may be thinking, "But Wayne, what if my desired state seems impossible?" Let me remind you, nothing is impossible to your inner conversation. Your inner conversation is God in action, and to God all things are possible. During these 3 days, your inner conversation must be about possibility, not probability. You must speak to yourself from the state of your wish fulfilled, regardless of how probable or improbable may seem to your rational mind. Let me share with you how to handle apparent failures during these 3 days. If something happens that seems to contradict your desired state, your inner conversation must remain unchanged. You must speak to yourself as though the seeming failure is actually part of the perfect unfolding of your desire. Remember, your inner conversation is creating your reality, not the other way around. Therefore, no external circumstance has the power to change your inner conversation unless you give it that power. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be your constant companion. It must be the lens through which you view every experience, the filter through which you interpret every event, the standard by which you measure every circumstance. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates your belief system, and your belief system creates your reality. Therefore, during these 3 days, your inner conversation must consistently reinforce the beliefs that support your desired state. During these 3 days, your inner conversation must be a perfect reflection of the person you wish to be. You must speak to yourself as that person would speak. Think as that person would think. Feel as that person would feel. Let me share with you how to maintain this level of consciousness. When you catch yourself speaking from your old state, immediately ask yourself, how would I be speaking to myself if I were already the person I wish to be? Then revise your inner conversation accordingly. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be about what is not, what was, or what might be. You must speak to yourself in the present tense from the state of your wish fulfilled. This is crucial for the manifestation of your desire. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates your future, but it does so by creating your present. Therefore, during these 3 days, your inner conversation must make your desired future your present reality. Many of you may be wondering what will happen after these 3 days. Let me tell you, if you have maintained the proper inner conversation for 3 days, you will have set in motion forces that must result in the manifestation of your desire. During these 3 days, your inner conversation must be your primary tool for creation. Every other method, every other technique, every other approach must be secondary to maintaining your new inner conversation. Let me share with you how to know if your inner conversation is correct. If it feels natural, if it feels real, if it feels true even in the face of contrary evidence, then your inner conversation is correct. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be protected like a precious jewel. You must guard it against doubt, against fear, against negativity, for your inner conversation is the very substance from which your world is created. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates your relationship with yourself, and your relationship with yourself creates all other relationships. Therefore, during these 3 days, your inner conversation must reflect the highest, most loving relationship with yourself. During these 3 days, your inner conversation must be your sacred practice. You must treat it with the same reverence that a priest treats his prayers, that a scientist treats his experiments, that an artist treats his creations. Let me share with you how to maintain this level of devotion. See your inner conversation as your direct connection to the creative power of the universe. For that is exactly what it is, your consciousness in action creating your world. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be your constant reminder of who you really are, the operant power in your world, the creator of reality, the God of your uniqueness. And that, my dear friends, is how you must talk to yourself for 3 days if you wish to transform your world. Not sometimes, not occasionally, but consistently, continuously, constantly. For your inner conversation is the Word of God in action, and it cannot return void. Remember this, your world is your inner conversation pushed out. Therefore, guard your inner conversation for these 3 days as though your life depends upon it, because it does. So what will you do with this knowledge? Will you continue with your old inner conversation, creating the same results you've always created? Or will you begin today, this moment, to maintain a new inner conversation that must create a new world? The choice is yours, but the law is absolute. Your inner conversation creates your reality. Therefore, speak to yourself for 3 days as though your desires are already fulfilled, and watch your world transform. That's the message I want to leave you tonight. Not because it's easy, but because it's true. Not because it's simple, but because it's powerful. Not because it's what you expected to hear, but because it's what you needed to hear. Remember, 3 days of proper inner conversation will transform your world. Every single time. And isn't that worth thinking about? How to truly fix yourself once and for all. We all have areas in our lives that we wish were different, whether it's breaking bad habits, overcoming self-doubt, or finally achieving the goals we've set for ourselves. But before we dive in, make sure to check the comment section where I've left a question for you. I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. So, let's get started. Fixing yourself is not about perfection. It's about progress. It's about recognizing that you have the power to shape your life and taking intentional steps to make it better. The first and most important step in this journey is self-awareness. You can't change what you don't acknowledge, so take a moment to reflect on your life, your habits, your behaviors, and your thoughts. What areas do you feel need improvement? Maybe it's your physical health, your mindset, or the way you handle relationships. Whatever it is, the key is to be brutally honest with yourself. It can be difficult to face your flaws, but remember, self-awareness is the foundation upon which all personal growth is built. Start by taking a deep inventory of your life. Ask yourself questions like, what habits are holding me back? What recurring thoughts or beliefs are limiting my potential? Are there relationships in my life that drain me rather than uplift me? Write these down and be as specific as possible. The more clearly you can identify what needs fixing, the easier it will be to develop a plan to address it. Once you've identified the areas that need work, the next step is to take full responsibility for your life. This might be the hardest part because it requires you to stop blaming external factors like other people, your circumstances, or your past for your current situation. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, if only this or that were different, my life would be better. But real change begins when you take ownership of your life and realize that you have the power to change your situation. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are the creator of your reality. By accepting responsibility, you empower yourself to make the necessary changes. Taking responsibility also means letting go of excuses. Excuses are the lies we tell ourselves to justify inaction, whether it's, I don't have time, no, I'm too tired, or I'll start tomorrow. These excuses keep us stuck in the same place. The truth is, if something is important to you, you'll find a way to make it happen. So, commit to being honest with yourself and recognize when you're making excuses. Challenge them and ask yourself, is this really true, or am I just avoiding something difficult? Now that you've taken responsibility, it's time to set clear, actionable goals. Knowing what you want to fix is one thing, but having a concrete plan in place is another. Start by setting specific, measurable, and achievable goals. Avoid vague goals like, I want to be healthier, or I want to be happier. Instead, break them down into smaller, actionable steps that you can tackle one at a time. For example, if your goal is to improve your physical health, you might start with a commitment to exercise 3 times a week and eat a balanced diet. If you're working on your mindset, you might set a goal to practice daily affirmations, meditate for 10 minutes each day, and read one self-improvement book a month. It's important to make sure your goals are realistic and attainable. Setting goals that are too ambitious can lead to frustration and burnout, which may cause you to give up altogether. Instead, focus on small, consistent actions that build momentum over time. Each small step you take brings you closer to your ultimate goal and helps build your confidence and sense of achievement. Yet, as you work on your goals, it's crucial to develop self-discipline. Self-discipline is the ability to do what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. It's the key to staying consistent and following through on your commitments, especially when motivation wanes. Motivation can be fleeting. It comes and goes depending on how you're feeling in the moment. But self-discipline is what will keep you on track even when the initial excitement wears off. Start by creating a daily routine that supports your goals. Set aside dedicated time each day to work on the areas you're trying to improve. This might mean waking up earlier, cutting out distractions, or saying no to activities that don't align with your priorities. Remember, self-discipline is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. You might not always feel like putting in the work, but remind yourself of why you started and how far you've come. Each time you push through the resistance, you're building your self-discipline and making it easier to stay on track in the future. Another crucial aspect of fixing yourself is building resilience. Life is full of challenges and setbacks, and it's easy to get discouraged when things don't go as planned. But resilience is what will keep you moving forward, even in the face of adversity. Resilience is not about avoiding difficulties, but rather about facing them head on and bouncing back stronger. When you encounter obstacles, don't give up. Instead, view them as opportunities to learn and grow. Reflect on what went wrong, adjust your approach, and keep going. The more resilient you become, the more capable you'll be of overcoming the difficulties that come your way. Developing resilience also involves changing the way you perceive failure. Instead of seeing failure as a dead end, view it as a stepping stone on the path to success. Every failure is a lesson in disguise, teaching you what doesn't work and bringing you one step closer to finding what does. The most successful people in the world didn't get there by avoiding failure. They got there by failing, learning, and trying again. So, don't be afraid to take risks and make mistakes. The more you fail, the more you learn, and the stronger you become. Cultivating a positive mindset is another essential element in fixing yourself. Your thoughts have a powerful impact on your life and your ability to make lasting changes. If you're constantly telling yourself that you're not good enough or that you'll never succeed, you're setting yourself up for failure. Instead, practice positive self-talk. Remind yourself of your strengths and accomplishments. Visualize yourself succeeding and achieving your goals. Surround yourself with positive influences, whether it's through the books you read, the people you interact with, or the content you consume. A positive mindset will help you stay focused and motivated, even when the going gets tough. In addition to mindset, self-care plays a critical role in fixing yourself. You can't pour from an empty cup, so it's important to take care of your physical, emotional, and mental well-being. Make time for activities that recharge you, whether it's exercise, hobbies, spending time with loved ones, or simply relaxing. Pay attention to your body's needs. Eat nutritious foods, get enough sleep, and manage stress. Self-care isn't selfish. It's necessary for maintaining the energy and focus you need to make lasting changes in your life. Prioritize your physical health by creating a routine that includes regular exercise, a balanced diet, and adequate sleep. Exercise is not just about looking good. It's about feeling good and maintaining a healthy body that can support your ambitions. Whether it's a morning jog, a yoga session, or hitting the gym, find an activity that you enjoy and make it a regular part of your life. Eating a balanced diet fuels your body and mind, giving you the energy and mental clarity needed to tackle your goals. And don't underestimate the power of sleep. It's during sleep that your body repairs itself and your mind processes the day's events. Aim for 78 hours of quality sleep each night to ensure you're at your best. Emotional self-care is equally important. Life can be stressful, and it's easy to get caught up in the hustle and forget to take care of your emotional well-being. Make time to connect with your emotions and express them in healthy ways. This might mean journaling, talking to a trusted friend, or seeking professional help if needed. Remember, it's okay to feel emotions, whether they're positive or negative. What's important is how you manage them. Practicing mindfulness and meditation can also help you stay centered and reduce stress, making it easier to navigate life's challenges. Lastly, remember that fixing yourself is not a one-time event. It's a lifelong process. There will always be areas to improve and new challenges to face. Be patient with yourself and embrace the journey. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small, and keep striving to become the best version of yourself. It's okay to stumble and make mistakes. What's important is that you get back up and keep moving forward. If you found value in this video, please give it a thumbs up. Share it with someone who might need it. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. And remember to check the comment section to answer the question I left for you. I'm excited to hear your thoughts. Stay strong, Stay focused and keep working on becoming the best version of yourself. See you in the next video. If you've made it this far, drop a 100 in the comments. It shows you are part of the 1% that's improving every single day. There is a man who walks alone, surrounded not by the laughter of companions, but by the quiet echoes of his own thoughts. In his solitude, there is no friend to speak of, no hand to shake, no embrace to share. Yet in the silence of his existence lies the profound secret of the divine connection the world would call such a man lonely, an outcast. Perhaps, but they see only with mortal eyes. They measure his life by the absence of voices around him, forgetting that the absence of noise often reveals the whispers of the eternal. This man without friends is not abandoned, but invited to discover that the greatest friendship he will ever know resides within his own soul. To be alone is not to be forsaken. It is to be chosen. For in this sacred isolation, a man can finally hear the call of the infinite. His solitude becomes the fertile ground where the seeds of divine truth are sown. In the stillness, he is taught the greatest lesson, that God himself is his companion, his confidant, his eternal friend. This friendship requires no validation from the world, for it is unshaken by time, untouched by betrayal, and unbroken by death. A man with no friends carries a heavy cross, but that very cross leads him to the heights of spiritual awareness. He learns to walk by faith and not by sight, to trust in the unseen arms that hold him steady while others seek comfort in fleeting relationships. He finds solace in the unwavering presence of the divine. He becomes a vessel filled not with the fleeting approval of men, but with the boundless love of the Creator. This man, seemingly alone, is far from empty. In fact, he is the richest among men, for he has uncovered the truth that eludes many. The kingdom of God is within him. Every step he takes is guided, every breath he draws is sanctified, and every tear he sheds is caught by the hand of his eternal friend. His isolation transforms into revelation, and his solitude becomes a sanctuary. So as he walks this path with no companions in sight, he is not burdened by the absence of others. Instead, he is liberated by the presence of the divine. He learns that he is never truly alone, for the God who created the heavens and the earth dwells within him, whispers to his heart and walks beside him. Always this man, in the quietness of his solitude, begins to see the world differently. Where others see emptiness, he discovers fullness. The laughter of children, the rustling of leaves, the faint hum of the wind, all become symphonies of the divine. He understands that what he once thought of as silence is, in truth, a sacred dialogue where the soul communes with the infinite. The absence of voices allows him to hear what truly matters, the voice within that says, "You are mine and I am yours," as he walks through life without the companionship of others. He notices that his heart begins to soften in ways it never had before. Compassion swells within him, not because he seeks to win favor, but because he now sees himself in everyone. The separation that once defined his existence starts to dissolve. He understands that while he may lack human friends, he is intricately connected to all creation. Every face he passes is a mirror reflecting the divine spark that resides within him. The man learns to stand firmly in his truth, unshaken by the opinions of the world, for a man with no friends often discovers the courage to stop pretending. He no longer seeks to mold himself to fit the expectations of others. Instead, he grows into the fullness of who he was created to be. The approval he once sought from friends is replaced by the assurance that he is already approved by the Creator. In his solitude, he finds authenticity, a gift more precious than the shallow comforts of empty companionship. There are nights when loneliness grips him tightly, when the silence feels more like a void than a sanctuary. Yet even in those moments, he learns to press deeper into the mystery of his existence. The tears he sheds become prayers, and the ache in his heart becomes a call to the divine. Through this pain, he grows. He understands that suffering is not punishment, but a tool for refinement. Just as gold is purified by fire, so too is his soul purified in the furnace of solitude. In time, he realizes that his journey is not one of lack, but of abundance. While others surround themselves with people, yet feel an emptiness within. He discovers the fullness of life and his connection to the divine. He walks with the quiet confidence of a man who knows that every step is guided, every path is purposeful. He is no longer tethered to the need for validation, for he knows that he is seen, heard, and deep, beloved by the one who created him. His solitude teaches him patience without the distractions of social noise. He learns to wait upon the divine. He begins to understand that life unfolds not on his terms, but on the terms of the eternal. This waiting is not passive, but active, a practice of trust. He learns to rest in the assurance that all things are working together for his good. His solitude is not a punishment, but a preparation, a sacred space, where the divine molds him into the man he is meant to become. As he continues his journey, he begins to notice a transformation within himself. The bitterness that once threatened to consume him is replaced by gratitude. He no longer sees himself as a victim of circumstance, but as a participant in a grand design. The absence of friends is no longer a burden, but a blessing, for it has freed him to deepen his relationship with the divine. He sees that what the world calls emptiness is, in truth, an invitation to fullness of fullness that can only be found within. Through his solitude, he becomes a man of strength, a man of vision. He learns that the true measure of a man is not in the number of friends he has, but in the depth of his character, the strength of his spirit. He becomes a beacon, a light in the darkness for others who feel lost and alone. His journey, though solitary, is not without purpose. It serves as a testimony to the transformative power of divine friendship. He begins to understand that his life is not his own, that he is part of something far greater than himself. The solitude that once felt like a curse now feels like a calling. He is called to be a vessel to carry the light of the divine into a world that often feels dark and cold. His isolation becomes his strength, for it has taught him to rely not on the fleeting comforts of human relationships, but on the eternal assurance of the divine. The man realizes that love is not something he lacks, but something he is. He becomes a channel for this love, allowing it to flow through him to others. Though he may not have friends in the traditional sense, he touches lives in ways that words cannot describe. His kindness, his compassion, his unwavering faith, all become a testament to the truth that he has discovered. He no longer needs friends to define his worth, for he knows that his worth is infinite, bestowed upon him by the Creator. In the stillness of his solitude, he discovers the power of imagination with no one to distract him. He learns to create a world within himself, a world where all things are possible. He begins to see his life not as a series of random events, but as a canvas painted with the brush strokes of his thoughts and beliefs. He understands that his solitude is not a limitation, but an opportunity to shape his reality, to align his inner world with the divine vision for his life. As he continues to walk this path, he becomes a man of peace. The storms of life no longer unsettle him, for he has found a sanctuary within himself. He knows that he is never truly alone, for the divine presence is always with him, guiding him, comforting him, loving him. His life becomes a living testament to the truth that the greatest friendship we will ever know is the one we cultivate with the divine. And so he walks forward not in loneliness, but in the fullness of divine companionship. A man who is truly never alone. The man walks with a quiet resolve, carrying within him the realization that life is not measured by the relationships he lacks, but by the depth of the connection he has cultivated with the unseen. Each day he awakens not with a sense of despair over his solitude, but with a profound gratitude for the opportunity to delve deeper into the mysteries of his own being. He no longer views his life through the lens of absence. Instead, he sees it as a space where the divine can dwell fully, unhindered by distractions. He begins to notice the subtle beauty in moments that others might overlook. The rising sun becomes a reminder of renewal, a symbol of hope, that each day carries the potential for transformation. The stars at night are no longer distant lights, but companions in the vastness of creation, whispering the truths of eternity. The man finds that the world itself becomes a friend, offering lessons, comfort, and wisdom in ways he never imagined. Every breath becomes a prayer, every step a sacred act, every thought an opportunity to align with the divine. Through his solitude, he gains clarity without the noise of opinions and expectations. He can finally hear the voice of his own soul. This voice, though soft, carries with it the power of truth. It reminds him that he is not defined by the relationships he has or lacks, but by the essence of who he is, a child of the divine made in its image, carrying within him the seed of infinite potential. In this realization, he finds a freedom that few ever experience, a liberation from the need to seek validation from the world. The man's journey is not without its challenges. There are moments when the weight of solitude feels unbearable, when he longs for a friend to share his thoughts and dreams. Yet even in these moments, he discovers a strength within himself that he never knew he had. He learns that the longing he feels is not for mere companionship, but for something far greater, a union with the divine that transcends the fleeting nature of human relationships. This longing drives him deeper into his spiritual practice, pushing him to seek and find the presence that has been with him all along. In his solitude, he becomes attuned to the rhythms of life. He begins to see the patterns and cycles that govern existence, the ebb and flow of seasons, the rise and fall of tides. These natural rhythms mirror the journey of his own soul, teaching him to embrace both the highs and the lows, the joy and the sorrow. He learns that just as the earth rests in winter to prepare for the bloom of spring, so too must his soul rest in solitude to prepare for its own blossoming. The man's solitude teaches him humility. He no longer sees himself as the center of the universe, but as a part of a vast interconnected hope. This humility allows him to let go of his ego, to release the need to control or manipulate. He learns to surrender, to trust that the divine plan for his life is far greater than anything he could conceive. In this surrender, he finds peace, a peace that surpasses all understanding, a peace that fills the void his solitude once created through his journey. The man becomes a vessel for wisdom. The insights he gains in his solitude are not meant for him alone, but for the world. He begins to share his experiences, not with the intention of gaining recognition, but with the hope of guiding others who feel lost and alone. His words carry the weight of authenticity, for they are born from a place of deep understanding. He becomes a light for those still searching, a beacon that points the way to the truth he has discovered. The man also learns the art of gratitude in his solitude. He realizes that every moment is a gift, every breath a blessing. He begins to give thanks, not only for the joys in his life, but also for the challenges, for he understands that both are necessary for his growth. Gratitude becomes his constant companion, a practice that transforms his perspective and opens his heart to the abundance that surrounds him. He no longer focuses on what he lacks, but on what he has. And in this shift, he discovers a richness that surpasses anything the world can offer. As the days turn into weeks and the weeks into years, the man's solitude becomes a sanctuary, a sacred space where he can retreat and reconnect with divine. He begins to cherish this time alone, seeing it not as a burden but as a blessing. It is in this space that he finds clarity, strength, and purpose. He understands that his solitude is not a punishment but a privilege, an opportunity to grow closer to the source of all creation. The man's journey transforms him in ways he never imagined. He becomes a man of faith, a man of purpose. His solitude, once a source of pain, becomes the foundation of his strength. He no longer fears being alone, for he knows that he is never truly alone. The divine presence that has guided him through his journey is always with him, a constant source of love, wisdom, and strength. In this realization, the man finds a joy that cannot be shaken, a peace that cannot be disturbed, a love that cannot be broken. His solitude, far from being a curse, has become the greatest gift, his life a gift, that has allowed him to discover the truth of who he is and the boundless love of the divine. And so he continues to walk his path, not in loneliness, but in the fullness of divine companionship. A man who is truly free to the man, having embraced his solitude as a divine calling, begins to experience a profound shift in his awareness. He realizes that the absence of friends has stripped away the layers of illusion he once clung to without the constant mirroring of others' expectations. He discovers his true self, a self that is unshaken by external circumstances, a self that is rooted in the eternal. In this newfound awareness, the man sees that his life is not bound by limitations, but brimming with infinite possibilities. He understands that the solitude he once resisted is the soil in which the seeds of his destiny are planted. Till the quiet of his isolation, those seeds are not captured by his thoughts, his faith, and his unwavering belief in the unseen. He learns that what he holds in his mind with conviction will manifest in his reality. For the outer world is but a reflection of his inner state. Journey through solitude leads him to master the art of imagination with no distractions. His mind becomes a canvas upon which he paints the life he desires. He learns to see beyond appearances, to envision a reality that aligns with the deepest desires of his heart. He begins to understand that his imagination is not merely a tool for escape, but a divine faculty, a creative force that shapes his experience by dwelling on what he wishes to create rather than what he lacks. He steps into the role of a creator, co-laboring with the divine to bring his vision to life. The man also learns to cherish the present moment in the silence of his solitude. He discovers the past and future are illusions, mere constructs of the mind. The only reality is the present, and it is in this present moment that he finds the fullness of life. He realizes that the divine is not distant or far off, but present in every breath, every heartbeat, every ray of sunlight that touches his face. This awareness transforms his solitude into a sanctuary, a sacred space where he communes with the infinite. As the man grows in his understanding, he begins to radiate a quiet confidence that draws others to him. Though he has no friends in the traditional sense, he becomes a source of inspiration for those who encounter him. His presence carries a sense of peace, a depth that cannot be faked or manufactured. People sense that he has tapped into something profound, something eternal, and they are drawn to the light that emanates from within him. The man's solitude also deepens his compassion. He no longer sees others as separate from himself, but as reflections of the same divine essence that dwells within him. This realization dissolves the barriers of judgment and fear, replacing them with love and understanding. He learns to forgive not only others, but also himself, for he understands that all are on a journey of becoming, a journey that is guided by grace to his solitude. He becomes attuned to the subtle whispers of the divine without the noise of the world to drown it out. He hears the voice of intuition, the inner knowing that guides him on his path. He learns to trust this voice, to follow its leading, even when it defies logic or reason. In doing so, he discovers a life of alignment, a life where synchronicities abound and doors open effortlessly. He sees that his solitude has not isolated him, but has connected him more deeply to the flow of life. To see the man's journey also teaches him resilience, without the safety net of friendships to fall back on. He learns to rely on his inner strength. He becomes like a tree that grows strong and deep roots in the absence of shelter, capable of withstanding the storms of life. His solitude becomes his teacher, revealing to him the depths of his courage and the boundlessness of his spirit. He learns that true strength is not found in numbers, but in the quiet assurance that he is never alone. Over time, the man realizes that his solitude has given him a gift that few ever receive, the gift of knowing himself in the absence of external distractions. He has been forced to confront his fears, his insecurities, his doubts, but in doing so, he has also discovered his dreams, his passions, his purpose. He understands that his solitude has not diminished him, but has revealed the truth of who he is, a being of light, love, and infinite potential. The man comes to see his life as a journey of unfolding, a process of becoming who he was always meant to be. His solitude, far from being a hindrance, has been the catalyst for his transformation. It has stripped away the superficial to reveal the sacred, replacing emptiness with a fullness that can never be taken away. He walks through life with a quiet joy, a knowing that he is not defined by the relationships he has or lacks, but by the relationship he has cultivated with the divine. Through this path is solitary. It is not without purpose. He understands that his life is a message, a testament to the power of faith, imagination, and love. He sees that his journey is not for him alone, but for all who feel lost, lonely, or forgotten. His story becomes a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the absence of friends, one can find a companionship that surpasses all understanding, a companionship with the divine that is eternal, unshackable, and infinitely loving. The man once burdened by the weight of solitude now walks with the likeness of one who has discovered the truth of his being. He knows that he is never truly alone, for the presence that sustains the universe also sustains it in truth. He finds freedom, joy, and peace, a peace that fills every corner of his being and overflows into the world around him. He lives not as a man with no friends, but as a man who has found the greatest friend of all. The divine presence within the man's journey into solitude deepens further, and with each passing moment, he discovers nuances about himself and his relationship with the divine that he had never before considered. It becomes evident to him that the state of having no friends has stripped away the external identities he once wore, leaving him by yet authentically himself. He realizes this shedding is not a loss, but a divine act of preparation, preparing him for a higher understanding of love, life, and purpose. And in this state, he begins to reflect on the nature of dependency. Once he relied on others to affirm his worth, to validate his dreams, and to offer him the comfort of companionship, but in their absence, he has had no choice but to turn inward. This turning inward reveals a wellspring of strength he had not known existed. He learns to comfort himself with the assurance that the divine presence within is more steadfast and unconditional than any human relationship could ever be. This understanding fills the spaces that once felt empty, transforming his solitude into a profound experience of wholeness. A man finds himself more attuned to the beauty and interconnectedness of all creation. A bird song in the early morning speaks to him of joy. A blooming flower reminds him of resilience, and the steady flow of a river mirrors the persistence of life's energy. To these moments, once overlooked, now carry profound meaning, and he realizes that life itself is always communicating with him. Even in his aloneness, he is surrounded by a living, breathing universe that speaks directly to his soul. In these moments, he begins to understand that his solitude has granted him the gift of presence, no longer pulled in many directions by the demands of others. He can focus his full attention on the here and now. She notices the way sunlight dances through the leaves, the way his breath feels as it fills his lungs, and the subtle shifts of energy within him as he aligns with the divine. These simple observations become gateways to a deeper reality, a reality where he feels fully alive and connected, then begins to experience the profound joy of creating his life from within. He discovers that his thoughts are not fleeting occurrences, but powerful seeds that shape his reality. With this realization, he becomes intentional about what he dwells upon. Lee learns to guard his mind to replace those of lack and fear with those of abundance and love. As he does so, he notices his external circumstances begin to change, almost as if the world is rearranging itself to match the inner transformation taking place to his solitude. He becomes a man of deep faith. A faith no longer feels like a distant concept or a set of rituals, but a living, breathing trust in the unseen. He learns to move forward with confidence even when the path ahead is unclear, because he knows that the divine presence within him is always guiding him. This faith becomes his anchor, a source of unwavering strength in the face of uncertainty. As time passes, the man realizes that his solitude has given him an incredible sense of freedom without the need to conform to the expectations of friends or society. He is free to be entirely himself. This freedom allows him to explore his passions, to pursue his dreams, and to express his authentic self without fear of judgment. He discovers a joy in living that is unshaken by external circumstances, a joy that comes from the simple act of being. His solitude also teaches him patience. He learns to trust in the timing of his life, understanding that every moment, whether joyful or challenging, is part of a greater plan. This patience allows him to release the need for control, to surrender to the flow of life, and to trust that all is unfolding exactly as it should. In this surrender, he finds a peace that transcends understanding, a peace that becomes the foundation of his life. The man begins to view his solitude as a sacred space, a time of preparation for something greater. He understands that the lessons he is learning now are shaping him into the person he is meant to become. He sees that his journey is not about avoiding loneliness, but about embracing it as a path to deeper self-discovery and connection with the divine. This shift in perspective transforms his solitude from a burden into a blessing. In his aloneness, he becomes more attuned to the needs of others. Paradoxically, his solitude deepens his empathy, for he knows what it feels like to be misunderstood, to feel isolated, to long for connection. His understanding allows him to approach others with compassion, to see them not as separate from himself, but as reflections of the same divine essence. His heart opens, and he becomes a source of love and light to those around him. The man's life becomes a testament to the power of solitude. He no longer sees himself as a man with no friends, but as a man who has found the greatest companionship within his journey is not one of isolation, but of union with himself, with the divine and with the greater whole of creation. In his solitude, he has discovered a richness that no external relationship could ever provide. A richness that flows from the infinite wellspring of the divine within. The man grows increasingly aware of the vastness of his inner world and expands previously unexplored because of the distractions of external relationships. In the quiet of his solitude, he discovers the mind is like fertile soil, capable of cultivating thoughts, dreams and visions that align with the life he deeply, deeply desires. He begins to see himself not as a passive observer of life, but as its architect, realizing that his inner beliefs are the blueprints from which his outer reality is constructed. Each day, he practices the discipline of turning inward, allowing his imagination to guide him. He visualizes himself surrounded by abundance, joy, and fulfillment, not as a distant dream, but as a present reality. These moments of deep connection with his inner self become sacred rituals, times when he feels the presence of the divine working through him, shaping his life in ways both seen and unseen. He understands that his ability to imagine and believe is not merely a gift, but a responsibility, for his thoughts are the seeds from which his future grows. Through this process, the man begins to shed the weight of all fears and insecurities. He no longer clings to the idea that he needs others to validate his worth or provide him with a sense of belonging. Instead, he finds his value in the unwavering truth that he is a creation of the divine, inherently worthy and infinitely loved. This realization transforms the way he sees himself and the world around him. He no longer views solitude as an absence, but as a fullness, a state where he can hear the whispers of the divine and feel its presence in every fiber of his being. As he continues to journey inward, the man notices that his perception of time begins to shift. The hours that once felt heavy with loneliness now seem to flow effortlessly, filled with meaning and purpose. He learns to savor each moment, understanding that life is not something to be rushed through, but experienced fully. This newfound appreciation for the present brings a sense of peace that permeates every aspect of his life. He no longer feels the need to chase after the approval of others or to fill his days with distractions. Instead, he finds joy in the simple act of being, in the stillness that allows him to connect with the divine essence within. The man's solitude also becomes a source of clarity without the noise of external influences. He begins to see his life with new eyes. He recognizes patterns and beliefs that no longer serve him, and has the courage to let them go in their place. He cultivates new ways of thinking and being that align with his highest self. This process of inner transformation is not always easy, but he embraces it with faith, knowing that each step he takes brings him closer to the fullness of his divine potential. Over time, the man notices subtle yet profound changes in his outer reality. Opportunities that once seemed out of reach begin to present themselves, and the people he encounters reflect the love and authenticity he has cultivated within. He realizes that his solitude has not isolated him, but has prepared him to engage with the world in a deeper and more meaningful way. The relationships he now forms are not based on need or fear, but on mutual respect and shared purpose. These connections, though few in number, are rich and fulfilling, a testament to the transformation that has taken place within him. The man's journey through solitude also deepens his relationship with the divine. He comes to understand that the presence he feels within is the same presence that sustains the entire universe. This realization fills him with awe and gratitude, for he sees that he is not separate from the divine, but an expression of it. This awareness transforms his life into an act of worship, a celebration of the infinite love and wisdom that flows through him. In his solitude, the man becomes a beacon of light to others. Even if he does not seek to be, people are drawn to the peace and strength that emanate from him, sensing that he is tapped into something profound and eternal, though he does not rely on their admiration or approval. He welcomes the opportunity to share what he has learned. He speaks not from a place of superiority, but from a deep understanding of the human experience, offering encouragement and hope to those who feel lost or alone. The man's story is one of transformation, a testament to the power of solitude, and the divine presence within his journey has taught him that true fulfillment does not come from external circumstances, but from the inner alignment with the infinite. He has learned to see his solitude not as a limitation, but as a gift, a sacred space where he can grow, heal, and become the person he was always meant to be. In the stillness, he starts to confront the beliefs that have shaped his life up until now. These beliefs, he realizes, are not truths but perceptions that were created based on past experiences, societal conditioning, or the opinions of others. He begins to challenge these old narratives, examining each belief with clarity and objectivity. As he does, he uncovers the power he holds to rewrite these narratives, transforming fear into courage, doubt into confidence, and limitation into possibility. The more he shifts his mindset, the more he witnesses his world reflecting back his inner transformation. The power of thought becomes his constant companion. He understands that his thoughts are not random occurrences, but active creators of his reality. He begins to cultivate a disciplined mind, one that focuses on only those thoughts that align with his highest good. He refuses to entertain thoughts of lack, inadequacy, or unworthiness. Instead, he nurtures thoughts of abundance, strength, and divine purpose. Over time, he sees the effects of this practice in his external life. As opportunities flow toward him with ease, relationships become more harmonious, and an undeniable sense of fulfillment emerges from within. In this deep process of self-realization, the man also finds that his emotions, which were once volatile and unpredictable, begin to stabilize. He recognizes that emotions are not to be suppressed or ignored, but understood and embraced. Each emotion, he learns, is a messenger carrying wisdom about his inner state. When he feels sadness, it is a signal to examine areas of his life that need healing. When he experiences joy, it is a reflection of his alignment with his divine essence. By becoming the observer of his emotions, rather than being at their mercy, he gains mastery over his inner world, which in turn shapes his outer world. With this mastery of thought and emotion, the man begins to explore the depth of his imagination. He understands that imagination is the gateway to all possibilities. It is through imagination that he can create the life he desires, manifesting the dreams that once seemed out of reach. He spends time each day visualizing his ideal life, not as a distant future, but as a present reality. He imagines himself living in harmony with others, achieving his goals, experiencing profound peace, and living in abundance. As he immerses himself in these vivid, joyful images, he feels the emotions of success and fulfillment as though they have already come to pass. His imagination becomes a powerful tool for manifestation, a conduit through which he channels his desires into physical form. In his solitude, the man also learns to reconnect with nature. He finds solace in the quiet beauty of the world around him, realizing that nature, too, is an expression of the divine. The wind whispers messages of peace. The trees stand as silent sentinels, embodying strength and endurance, and the stars offer glimpses of the infinite. In the vastness of the natural world, he begins to see that he is not isolated, but part of something much greater than himself. He is a single thread in the grand tapestry of life, intricately woven into the very fabric of the universe. This realization fills him with a deep sense of gratitude, for he knows that every part of nature is a reflection of the divine energy that also resides within him. The more the man explores these depths of consciousness, the more he comes to understand the importance of self-love. For much of his life, he had sought love and validation from others. But now he recognizes that true love begins within. He learns to love himself unconditionally, accepting every part of himself, the strengths and weaknesses, the successes and failures, the light and the shadows. He understands that by loving himself, he aligns with the divine love that is always present, and this love becomes the foundation upon which his life is built. It is through this self-love that he finds peace, not in the approval of others, but in the deep knowing that he is worthy of love, simply because he exists through his journey. The man also experiences a deepening of his relationship with the divine. No longer seeking external validation, he turns inward to find a connection that transcends all human relationships. He begins to see that the divine is not a distant, abstract concept, but a living presence within him, always guiding him, always supporting him. This inner presence becomes his constant companion, a source of strength and wisdom that he can always rely on in moments of doubt or confusion. He closes his eyes, connects with this divine presence, and finds the clarity and peace he needs to move forward. He understands that the divine is not separate from him, but is woven into the very fabric of his being. It is this connection that sustains him, and it is this connection that allows him to live a life of purpose and fulfillment. As time passes, the man begins to notice that the external world responds to his inner transformation. He attracts people into his life who mirror the love, peace, and authenticity he has cultivated within his relationships become deeper and more meaningful, built not on the need for validation, but on mutual respect and shared purpose. These new connections are not about filling a void, but about celebrating the fullness that already exists within him. He finds that he can give love freely without expectation, knowing that love is a limitless resource that flows from within. The man's journey into solitude has not been about isolation, but about reconnection. It has been a journey of discovering the vast potential that resides within him, a journey that has revealed to him the truth of his divine nature.